I hit record. And I want to welcome everyone who's watching this and ask you to be a little patient because I need to share this out now to Intuition of the Soul. And there we go. And I always like to make sure that we are on where we think we are on.
Right.
There we are. So welcome, folks, Intuition of the Soul. We're about 2 minutes early, so the notices are going out. Sometimes it takes me longer to share to different platforms. Donna, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I'm
I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited. I'm excited to talk about my friend, the Mind Whisperer, and she really does write about a topic I'm very interested in, and I have finished her book. And this, of course, is what we're doing at the end of September. Oh, look, there's my ring camera, um, ring light. At the end of September and October. So we urge people to buy it. It's available Kindle, it's available hardback, and it's available this. There is a journal to go with it. The journal is not a guided journal, though, right? It's pretty much
So
open ended to make
it's an
notes.
open journal. Yes, there's some instructions in the beginning, but it's really to follow and to go with the format that's written in the book.
Okay. Yeah, I knew there was some guidance in the beginning of it. And of course, I bought it backwards. I bought the journal after I read the book. So it's kind of a nice companion to have. But I'm very excited to talk about this. And I just found out this is one of three, guys. So this is the beginning of a trilogy. And a very, very exciting, we're going to be talking about Dawna and what she does and how this came to be. But I just want to tell you, I really enjoyed this
Mm,
because it was in a story form. And having been an educator, I've read many, many texts and guidance about how you do things. And one of the things I can tell you about educational journals is that if they can say it in 2 pages, they'll say it in 40.
right.
It's it's a lot of words usually. And so I enjoyed learning and following along in a story. And so I'm going to let you introduce yourself. It's now 8 o'clock, and we do have a couple people watching us live. And so why don't you just introduce yourself, Donna, and we'll come around and we'll see what happens. But again, if you're looking,
What
this is
to
the
say?
Abundant Soul.
Yes.
And just the title alone, I want to kind of go like this.
Right.
The
Right.
Abundant Soul.
It'll
Yeah,
become a movement.
right.
For those who don't know me, I'm Donna Campbell. I have an international healing practice. I have for the last, 20-ish years. In doing that, I actually have a background in finance. I was a financial advisor and a managing principal of an investment firm. And I was responsible for about $500 million of other people's money, which was actually a lot of money 30 years ago.
But yeah, it's a lot of
Right?
money now. Let's face it.
It's
It
a
may
lot of
not
money
be as
now.
much. It's still a lot of money. Yeah.
So, right around, I spent a decade in that year. And right around
Wow,
year,
that's quite a bit. I spent a
right,
decade in that year. What year was
in
that?
that career.
Oh, in that career. I thought you said in
There
that
we go.
year, and I was like, wow.
And right around year 7, I got incredibly sick, and doctors weren't able to figure out why. So 2 years later, I went and saw a naturopathic doctor who was really the introduction to beliefs and energy work for me. And I realized I couldn't digest food. And then after that, my marriage ended. And then after that, I almost died at the hands of somebody else. And then after that, I was left financially devastated, raising 2 kids by myself as a single parent. So during that time, all of those things happened within a 4 to 5 year time frame. So you become your own first client. And so what I do today with the healing practice, people are like, well, that's like a 180, the opposite end of the spectrum. And it's like, well, yes, because I made a promise to God, spirit, creator, universe, whatever you want to call it, that if I and my children were kept safe, I would dedicate my life to a healing path. And I haven't stopped since. So that's how I got into the career that I have today, working as a healer. But I work on a subconscious level on vibration, frequency, and energy. and reprogram your mind, your brain to get you instantaneous results. So that's what I do today. Then it gets expressed out through writing, it gets expressed out through speaking, being on podcasts, being a podcast host, retreats, um, live and virtual events. All of those different things are different ways to express the healing work.
So just can you tell us a little just about like how you approach the healing work? Because that is a big 180 that you've gone through. And what I so have enjoyed is you've put it back together now too.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
to talk about that. So
So how I approach the healing work is we are electromagnetic beings. So energy is moving up and down our body and in and out of our body. So electrically and then magnetically. And we're always tracking back everything that we're sending out on that energetic level. So a lot of times we'll say things like, or they say our thoughts create a reality. So it'll say or feel, I'm rich and abundant. But yet, magnetically in the heart space, it's lack, who am I, imposter syndrome, is there enough, there's worry, all of those energies. And so, what I do is I come in, share an energy field in space, and realign. So, when you think I'm rich and abundant, you feel rich and abundant on the inside. So it puts you in back into that vibrational harmony. And then that's the energy that goes out. So I learned how to do this actually working with a medicine woman.
oh wow.
And she taught me some of her techniques and the things that she did energetically. So that's kind of how it got started.
Wow. And how did you find the medicine woman? I mean,
Maybe she
it's
found
not
me.
like you out in the woo-woo department of the, you know.
No, I think the universe always has a way of aligning the right people into your life at the right times. And there was a time that I was in Montana before I officially moved here for a couple of months. And I had been out on a reservation, and then I went up. I saw on their little local paper that this person was having a labyrinth walk. So I showed up. And then I meet this lady only to realize that she's the medicine woman of the tribe. Now, you would think a medicine woman would look more like this.
Right.
This is a great grandmother of mine, but she didn't. She had long hair like that, but it was gray and it was rolled up in a bun. She was kind of plump and had on glasses and looked like Mrs. Doubtfire. I'm not kidding. But that's what she looked like. So you're thinking you're going to meet this amazing Indian lady that's sage and full of wisdom. And no, no, I get Mrs. Doubtfire. Of course I do, because that's how the universe presented it to me. And so it was really interesting. I really connected with her, and she would teach, but it wasn't sitting down in formal classes. It was having a conversation, maybe through story, maybe not, asking questions, sharing space. I remember one time we were picking plums off the tree because when I drove up, there was a black bear in the neighbor's yard, which meant it was going to be coming over for food. So we had to take it all off the tree early. And her, I had a dog and she had a dog, and we were watching them interact. And all at once, I saw scenarios in my life starting to play out through the pattern and the energy of the dogs. So a lot of the gifts, talents, and abilities were passed down like that. But one of the things that she did teach me was this strategy called pivot and shift, is what she called it. And it was really because if one emotion and frequency exists, so does the other, the opposite. It's just that you got stuck somewhere on one extreme and we didn't pay attention to the rest. And she first taught it to me in a physical format. So if I was in a room and I didn't like the energy of it, I could stand up, I could move, I could go get a glass of water, I could wash my hands, which I do all those things today. And I'm constantly moving because I'm constantly moving energy. Well, one of the assignments that we had to do was sit down and tell a story of something we wanted to change. And we first had to tell the story factually. So I sat down and said how I grew up, which was kind of like a life near poverty. Both of my parents worked. We were on food stamps. We were on welfare. We had other assistants. I raised myself. And and when I explained it and shared it to her, it kind of came off like a documentary, a really boring documentary. And she said to me, "All right, that's great. But I want you to tell me the story differently. I want you to tell it to me as if it was a comedy." Because, see, the medicine woman believed that if there was a life after death and there was a review, and if it was like a movie, you might as well be laughing, right? Because
Right.
who wants to watch something different? And so,
Yeah, I've got to say I'm right there with you. I'm not a
yeah,
person that pays money to be scared for
yep,
tragedies, for I would want the comedy. Yeah.
right. So
Hmm.
then I'm sitting there thinking, how do I reshare this story of growing up without a lot of food, buying my own clothes, my first job at 14, making sure I had money to buy my own lunch because those things weren't provided for by my family at that time, and make it funny. And so I do another rendition of it, and she goes, "All right, that's great. Now I want you to tell it as a sad, tragic love story." So, of course, I have my beautiful rendition of Romeo and Juliet. They all die at the end, thieves come, everything's stolen. That was easy. And then, we're several hours into this, and she says to me, "All right, now I want you to tell it from a place of abundance and richness." And I thought I had it down and I had totally nailed it. And I talked about all the amazing things that I would do and all the gifts that I would share and the things that I would help other people. And it was kind of like the Mother Teresa version of it. And she said, "All right, it's pretty good." And I'm thinking, I'm done. We're done with this exercise. And she goes, "I want you to tell that same story from the creator that created you." And in that moment, was a pivot and shift moment. And I realized that there was something more. And that was when I felt a physiological change in my body. And I knew that I was a divine being, a child of the great creator, and that we're all meant to live abundantly and prosperously.
I'm having literally tears. The idea of shifting to that is like, oh, oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So this was like an 8-hour day with her in that exercise. We condensed it down. You don't have to tell that story so many different ways because I learned how to find the emotional and vibrational frequencies of the things that we don't want, the poverty and the despair and desperation, and shift it to the energies that we do want, the abundance, the richness, who we really are, and put us back into that soul alignment. And so it's just been a refinement of those techniques and incorporating all the other things that I've learned, all the other places that I've been, and putting it together into one thing. So I call it thought form energy healing because what we're really doing is healing the energy underneath the thought form. So that's what I do today.
Wow. I mean, you and I've talked a lot, but that was one of the most understanding I've had. And it kind of does lend itself to now, as I'm reading the book, to go again with that in mind. Because that is so, I mean, I do a lot of work, obviously, in energy, reading energy, and have a fascination with our thoughts. And I talk a lot about the words, the response, what's below that, changing that. And right, what is underneath what is coming forth. So, all right, so now you've started to do this work. Now,
Mhm.
take us from there because you have a fascinating, if
Oh,
you
I
had,
still went on bunny trails like a lot of people. It wasn't, even though you have these instantaneous moments, you still have free will, you still have choices, you're still learning. Everything in your life is for the soul's evolution and growth, nothing less. And if it's going to teach you through something not so good or what we would call negative in life, it's going to teach you if that way, if that's the way you can accept it. It's going to teach you through a positive. Here, everything's on we call it the silver platter. Maybe it's a gold platter. Here, just take it. but we have to learn to be able to receive, to take it off that platter. So the energy is going to teach you everything that you need in order to grow. And with that, because we're electromagnetic beings, it's all based on the internal frequency inside, because the frequencies that you emit out is what comes back.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all dependent upon you. It's all inside of you. And so after I made that promise, dedicating my life to this healing work, I landed back to where I started. 2 days after, I'm like, I made a promise to God. I should probably go fulfill that. I know it's only been 2 days, but might as well get started. And I didn't realize the lifelong commitment that meant, because 20-ish years later, I've been looking at, well, how do I shift that? How do I change that? Can I do it differently? Can I do other things? Nope, I still land right back into the healing work every single time. And so I started working on people. I started taking more classes, learned different modalities, studied with different Eastern teachers that have come across my way, like Buddhist monks and yogic healers. They just synchronistically lined up, learned from them. I lived in an ashram for a year. It's a spiritual living community. I studied science and physics and brainwave patterns and anything and everything I could get my hands on. And to this day, I still do that, because I believe we are students of our career, and we're always looking at knowledge and wisdom to be able to share that. So I worked privately for a long time. I worked for a founder of a modality while running my own business. And it's just been over the last 4 or 5 years, I was really encouraged, actually, energetically, to put a book together and start putting out some of the things that I learned with money and energy and who you are on a soul level. So the very first book I actually wrote is called Financially Fit: Living the Secrets to an Abundant and Prosperous Life. And so it's all of these principles here that I took, that I wove into the story for the abundant soul. And with all of that information and all of that knowledge, it's just really sharing it through writing. I also write for a magazine as a columnist. It's called Best Holistic Life. I often am writing for Your Success magazine. I write sometimes for the Los Angeles Tribune. I think I have chapters in about 10 other books. One called Cracking the Rich Code that has Jim Brett and Tony Robbins. So writing became a large part of what I do, because it's one way to communicate to the world. Now, I started with writing because that person, that time I almost died, he strangled me and had his hand around my throat to suppress my voice. And it wasn't until I really started working with my own voice to be able to move from writing into speaking. But all of that started because I went to write some business notes in early 2019, before COVID, and saw this visual of what I was going to be doing in the future, speaking on a particular type of stage. And I put down my journal and went, that's interesting. Picked it up a couple of years later, still written there. And I've just been moving into that realm. So I started with writing until I could get my voice. And then I started into speaking. And now I'm doing all kinds of things and producing events. But it's all centered around healing, because first and foremost, it's about the healing. All of those other aspects are just the different vehicles to communicate in the way that the people need to receive. And one person might want to read, one person might want to listen to a podcast.
I'm going to ask you because I've got my guide saying, ask her to describe what she sees as healing, what that is to her.
That's a great question.
Yeah, because we say words like healing, abundance, but without a paradigm, a definition.
Yeah.
So they're very, very clear. Have her talk about what healing is. Healing is to her. I'm already thinking about the fact of the emotions under the thoughts, getting to those. Because even in your stories, I'm thinking, I wonder if she's gone back then to look at the emotions in the events. Obviously, someone putting their hands on your throat, trying to literally take your life that is your voice.
Yeah.
And it's an and. What the energy that I had to go back and look at around that. So
Yeah, absolutely. I look at all the aspects of my life, past, present, and even future, because I'll look at the future to see what is being created. And if I don't like it, I'll start working on it and shifting and changing it so I can actually create what I want on purpose. So the question is what is healing, or what does healing really mean to me? Healing does not mean to cure or to put back the way it was before the condition started. So, say it's somebody's health, for example, and there's a physical level dis-ease in the body. Well, yes, we're going to take that out, but you're going to be a different person when that happens. It's not returning back to the original state before it happened, because you're just going to create that state again. So, healing is really bringing yourself closer to the creator that created you and putting you back into that alignment. It's really about your soul's evolution and growth, returning you back to your divine essence, elevating you in vibration and frequency, which as you elevate, you awaken. And as you awaken, you can do other things like, oh, I don't know, ascend. So it's really returning you back to the original state, not going back to what something was before it happened, but starting at that point, removing or changing that energy state and start guiding towards moving up closer to the creator, to the universe, to that original energy that created you. And I will say this, sometimes with healing, we believe healing is to stay here in this physical form on this planet. And I'm hearing very clearly here to also share, sometimes healing means dropping your physical body and moving on in spirit, crossing the veil to the other side, because that's what's needed for you at that time to be back closer to your creator. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to stay here in this body, but when you're leaving here, you're being born back over there. And then when we come here and we're born as a child, we're like going through our little mini death there to be born here. So it's a very much of a symbiotic relationship, but you have to understand that we're an internal being and we're an internal soul. And it's everything is in our life designed to bring you back to that original source, no matter what the trial or tribulation is. So that's what healing is to me.
I love that definition, because it does, then the next question becomes for me, then why do we sign up for this? What is,
We thought it would be fun.
I don't know if we always think it would be fun. It seems that there is also, for me, I add to that, a cosmic evolution is why we keep coming back. Because when we become closer to our source, and we're all in the same source, if I become closer to it, I create new pathways for human beings. And we're
Mhm.
certainly seeing that in this awakening energy that's happening now. That is, whether you want to call it the woke, whatever people want to call it, it is completely different
Mhm.
than it once was. Part of it is where we are right now, what we've been able to create as human beings to find each other. You know,
Yes.
we laugh about media, social media, oh, but it's how we find more about each other,
Mhm.
you know? We aren't in the wagons going across the West trying to figure this out. We are absolutely
Mhm.
um, finding different ways to find each other. So I, I, it's a really good question to ask people. What is healing to you? And what then for me, then why what did I sign up for? I continually
Right.
come back to that. I have another friend, we've talked about that, like, so what was I thinking when that was what I,
Right.
put in my pathway along the way. And so and you help people align with what that is. So
Yeah.
I imagine in your work you've helped people cross over too then.
Yes. And that's not fun. But because they're going to the other side And you still have to work with the living people that are here on this planet as well. But yes, that has happened to me. And I have had clients choose to cross over, never for the reason I was hired to help them, because we reversed that and changed it. But when it's your time, it's your time. And death, what we call death, is a divine timing moment that's only known really to you, but so is your birth. It's a divine timing
Hmm.
moment. The day you choose to come here, at the time you choose to come here. Death is the
I
other.
certainly believe in that.
I
So,
know.
right. I spent a lot of time
So,
looking at that particular moment. You decided to come in here and what was going on in
right?
your paradigm. Yeah. So,
Yes. So we come here to learn, we come here to transcend energy, to learn through universal laws, to learn free will, to learn to become instant creators, all of those things we learn. And it's all for that soul's evolution and growth. And then we go to the other side, we understand why we had that particular life. And then we think, oh, that looks like such a fun time. I'm going to sign up again and do it over and take another set of stages and all of that. So you have to look at it as if it's a movie unfolding, which is really what the medicine woman taught me. So
we have several people watching with it. One person, Joanne, Joanne Angelberry,
yes,
and she
hello.
said it's funny to say cosmic evolution is the name of an event she's planning. She says your sound is a little low, so maybe you might
Oh,
want to turn. It
I have
sounds
a
fine to me.
microphone. Okay.
It sounds fine to me, but I'm on Zoom, so Zoom's going to correct it. But maybe when it's being so yeah, so much
Let
is
me see if
about.
I can speak up. If not, I will have to unplug my microphone.
Okay, just let us know. We have another person, Sue, said there's something sacred and special about being with someone assisting in crossing over as well.
Yes,
Um,
it
you
is
know,
one of the most divine, peaceful moments I have ever experienced in that. I will say that. And then you get to deal with all the other people that didn't see that.
right, right.
But
Um,
yes.
and that's that. I mean, I witnessed my own second mother crossing, and I was with the brothers and sisters and the people that were well, it was really all sisters. Um, and the people that were there, what amazing experience it was because they were there to help her cross. They weren't there about themselves. And I think that that's a
Yeah.
huge piece of healing. And maybe you can talk a little bit about that. How, today I went to Al Anon. Al Anon is all about how I learned to look at myself. And if I can hold the space for other people, it's by holding my own space. And maybe you can talk about some of that in healing, how we look at those outside measurements. Like you said, it's an inside journey. So,
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. And there's an ability to hold space for the other person, whether they're crossing over or looking at yourself, all of those different things. So it's really holding an energetic space so the energy can move, shift, and clear. And even if you go back to ancient times, there was ways and methods that people would use to help people leave the body and ascend. And it's taught in some of the courses. And even if I know in some of the Reiki courses, as you become a Reiki master, depending on what you study, there's different methodologies of how to move the energy with your hands and move it up and out the person. So it's something that's been practiced and done for a long time in ancient ways. I think we forgot some of that pathway there with it. But whether you're working with them or another person, you're holding space. And because of how quantum physics work, you can be in one energy field, somebody else is in a different energy field. You're not together like here we are here, but we can merge our energy spaces together. It's called quantum entanglement. And I can read your energy or be in your space. It's the space in between everything. So I know anything and everything that's going on. So I know how to ask the questions to see what you're experiencing to get the maximum of gain for you on a vibrational level so you get the transformation. But I don't stay there. So it's just for the moments of the time that we need to have those healing moments And it's also an alteration of brainwave patterns.
Right. I'm
Um,
hearing it's new neural pathways.
it's neuron
Spirits are
pathway.
not often does spirits say to me neural pathways,
Yes. Yeah.
but it is
Yes, absolutely.
it
And
you know
so,
there is some amazing marriage in this, especially in this particular time of the evolution of the physical,
yeah.
where we are, and this quantum entanglement, quantum tunneling. I happen to by accident fall into the spiritual quantum physics people. Um,
Mhm.
Nassim Haramein is a person that I follow really quite religiously. Um, he has even interesting explanations for source. He
Mhm.
talks about it being the fields we have yet to discover. When he talks about force, God, whatever you want to call it, he says, I mean it no disrespect, but that's what we part of this our physicalness is. So,
Yes,
um,
absolutely.
uh, so,
Absolutely.
it's such an interesting, and thank you for your definition of healing. Um, I think that's a good question to all of us to ask. What does healing mean to me? We say we want to be healed, but what does that mean, really?
Right.
You
Right.
know?
And as a healer, I am just the live energy conduit to bring the energy through to hold that space for the other person. You're actually doing the transformation work because when I ask, do you want to have all of these great things without the thing that you didn't want anymore? And you say yes. So your neuron pathways are starting to reprogram because what happens is we have cause and effect and we continue the same trajectory, Newton's three laws of physics, until it's met with an equal or opposite force to cause that disruption in the neuron pathway to create a new pathway for that to go down. And that's what we're doing. So, we create patterns and say, we're in an energy of anger. It's going to stay anger until it's met with something different to shift and change that. And so I come in as this disruptor, and then we reprogram to create that new neuron pathway. But there's three things that I call the healer's creed. Even though I'm bringing in the energy, we're doing this transformational work. And the first piece of being a healer in the healer's creed is you have to ask for the healing because I can't run around and make everybody do what I want them to do. You have to ask. And if you don't ask, you're not ready yet. So you do have to ask to recognize because that's when the acceptance comes in. The second thing that I have and what I've written in is the healer's creed is I can't want the healing more than you, meaning
Ah, I
I will
go to a
keep
meeting
healing.
once a week that's all about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't want the healing more than you want the healing because then I keep your healing and I'm not going to keep your healing. So you have to, it's accepting it. But the third thing that happens is I can't violate your free will. So even if you say, yes, I want this, and you don't really, it doesn't change. You feel it energetically, and then you have to have that conversation about resistance. But I can't violate another person's free will. So I continually ask when I do my work, do you want XYZ? And you would verbally have to say yes if you truly want it. Sure. Yeah, that doesn't work. Okay. Nope. Yeah, you can do whatever you want. No, I'm going to ask each and every time because you're not going to come in and decorate somebody else's furniture inside that doesn't want redecorating. You're just not. And if I really did break another person's free will, like that person attempting to take my life, your gifts, your talents, your abilities are taken away, and eventually you perish,
Hmm.
which is exactly what happened to that other person. Exactly. They did cross over several years later.
Yeah, I love the creed. Put it in the
Yeah.
front of your book, your next two books that go with
Well,
it.
we'll have to put it in the next one.
Yeah, in your next two,
The
because
healer's creed.
it's very important. Like I said, even
Yeah.
as I sit there it, asking permission, and it's amazing how some people will hear of a crisis and they say, "Well, um, I'm going to send you healing." And I went through this with my son when he was in a severe car accident, um, and they didn't ask, and I was like, "It's
Oh,
not mine." you know,
Oh,
and it's important to ask. And one of the reasons I'm so interested in language is language is limiting. Even as you're in this conversation, we
yes,
don't understand the agreements people have around certain words. Like, even as you said the word resistance, I have a Catholic schoolgirl upbringing. Resistance to me was power because I was resisting being taught this is the way you do things. So I try to use different words than resistance. I have, confusion. I have not understanding because to me, resistance is like the French, you know, vive la France,
exactly.
marchons, marchons, that
Yep.
whole feeling versus how other people use resistance. So
Yep.
I
There's a
am,
yes.
go ahead.
Yeah, there is a positive and negative aspect of every word. You're
Mhm.
absolutely right in that. And what might be resistance to one person might be completely different to somebody else. So that's why it's important that, energetically, I'm in your paradigm because I have to think, feel, and see what is going on within you for the change, which might be completely different than me. But my favorite word was stubborn. I had so many people do readings on me back in the day when I was learning things. You are so stubborn. They still call me stubborn to this day at times. And I had to really think about that and see if I was going to be good with that word or not, because nobody wants to be stubborn. We want to be flexible. We want to be this. We want to be that. And then I realized where I was really stubborn because I'm open, I'm easy, I go with the flow with a lot of things. But where I'm really stubborn is in my morals, values, and convictions and beliefs, which go back to virtues. And I will always choose the virtue over anything else. And I'm not going to do something that's not in alignment.
Mhm.
And if you're going to call me stubborn because I'm going to adhere to compassion and integrity, then okay, I'm going
Then
to be stubborn.
then what you call stubborn is different than what I understand. Joanne says here, as a healer, I do not send healing to anyone unless we are working together in an agreement. And it's my
Exactly.
boundary. And even as healers, as readers, sometimes we think we know and but we don't. I mean, one of the examples I give about words and its limitation is I use this word. This is the word bottle. Bottle. For some people, that's pretty nebulous. For other people, when you say the word bottle, they have alcoholism, or
Exactly.
or they had a mother that was struggling and she was shamed for using a bottle and not breastfeeding. So
Mhm.
we don't always understand all the agreements.
We
We don't
don't.
even understand all the agreements we have with ourselves, let alone other people,
See,
you know.
and the other piece with being a healer is we might want to do something, but we don't necessarily always understand the agreement that that person has with their creator.
That's right.
And I'll give you a fun example. It was one of my very first lessons in this. It was back when my mother was still alive. And gosh, this is probably about 10 years ago. And my mom had a lot of health problems. And she went to the doctor and she tells me all these things. I tell her exactly what the doctor's going to tell her. This was a game we played. I didn't know it was a game. That's how I have to look at it today. And then she would come back, tell me that I was right, but never follow through with what I said until the doctor said it. It was funny. But she comes home one day and gives me a phone call and says, yeah, apparently, who knew? I'm type 2 diabetic. And I had a moment because I knew, because I could see my mom, I could scan her, I could be in her space, I could do all these things. It wasn't just
Oh,
type 2
and that
diabetes.
that was a very deep one because you shared that physical DNA. Yeah.
Yes, I knew she also had the start of cancer.
Oh,
And I got off the phone and I went into a meditation and I was madder than a hornet's nest going, Creator, type 2 diabetes, really? And I heard intuitively, isn't it great? No, it's not great. She has, these are the five major emotions. This is what she's going to have to do. I mean, because I know the pathway, I've been there. And I heard, isn't it great? No, they should have told her she had cancer. We need to address this because she needs to live and da 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 da. And I heard again, isn't it great that she has type 2 diabetes? And then I stopped and I went, all right, you got my attention now. We did this 3 or 4 times. Tell me, why is this so great? And I heard, you know, your mother's greatest fear was cancer. And both of your grandparents crossed over from that. So if the doctor told her in that moment and found the cancer and told it to her, she would have died over in the office and hit the floor. So isn't it great that she has type 2 diabetes? So she has this ability now to become healthy and to live a different lifestyle and live a little bit longer, like, oh, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6 more years, and you can finish clearing your stuff around your mother and help her through the process. Isn't it great that she has diabetes? And I'm like, oh, that's a new perspective. So yes, they have to ask. My mom was not asking. What I did was clearly not in alignment with her personal belief system. And you know what? That's okay. It's not for everyone. But I learned a lot in that process there, um, because you always have to honor the other person, whether you choose it, whether it's I would have a different choice, but that's me. That wasn't my mother. So that was probably one of my greatest lessons.
I understand that one of the things you'll hear me say, you've heard me say it, is my own life is barely my business, because there are things going on in my own path. Because even as you're saying it, I'm hearing, because this is her path, this can take her on a different way to learn what it is she has to learn.
Yeah.
And, as a child who lost her first mother to cancer, I get that fear. And having a different health crisis, I understand. And you kind of go, oh, well, that's not what I was thinking was going to happen. So
Right.
it's a paradigm shift, which is why I love your explanation of healing. What's my agreement around so much
Mhm.
of life is our intentions and our agreements. What and I can switch all of those boundaries as I learn more. And I'm like you, I admire that you say, I'm here to keep learning. I'm
Yeah.
never done. I am
Oh,
absolutely, I need the perspective. I need the energy. I
mhm.
need more information so that as I work myself, healing, teaching, I'm not, it's not, I'm stay much more in contact with what's beyond.
Mhm.
And so I think that's part of learning that space, that resistance for where's me, where's them. For
Mhm.
me, it's the resistance. Yes, we can do this together. Together we are stronger versus, um, just like for stubborn for you. Our
Yes.
agreement, I sure mankind, as a matter of fact, I know mankind is working so that we can be beyond the limitations of our language. Eventually we'll be able to just read the energies, and you're one of those people, helping people find new pathways so they can be in touch with the energy. So all right, so now you've started your writing. Please, and by the way, is that other book available? Would you show that book again?
This one, yes, you can get this on Amazon as well.
Okay.
So this is just really like all of the different principles, the majority of them that the character, Crystal, in the Abundant Soul book goes through, um, written in story format. All the things she did to sabotage, all the things she started doing to open prosperity doors. I talk often about 4 sides of a quarter. So she learns that through different story lessons in real life.
Hmm.
So this is the book that came before it.
And so what had you, and 'cause I'm going to ask you to share, this is a trilogy again, folks. So we're going to be
Yes.
reading the first one, and I'm sure we're going to be reading the second and the third. Again, it's not till the end of September, beginning of October, that we'll have a chance to talk to the author and really take a look at where we are. So we wanted Dawna to come on and talk about what she did before you meet the character of Crystal. And I will agree with, you find characters in this book that speak to you, and
Yeah.
because you're introduced all the way through. Um, One of my favorites is her friend who finds is in her own journey, a much
Mhm.
more, I don't want to use 3D, 5D, I don't particularly like that, but a much more pragmatic thing that she's discovering using and Crystal's doing the same thing, but in a whole different way. So how did
Yeah.
you head down this road in the story form?
Um, I was gonna write a different version of Financially Fit, and then a dear friend of mine said, "Well, if you're gonna rewrite it, why not get a new title? You're gonna have to, relabel it anyway." So then I really started looking at different titles and came up with The Abundant Soul, creating inner wisdom for financial success. And I'm like, okay, this is it. And then I went and got my book cover designed. And then I started thinking about, well, my book cover looks like a novel, not like, a self-help book. So I don't know how I'm going to do it as a novel, but okay, that's what I'm guided to. And again, synchronistically, things aligned, and I met a person and they shared how you put it into a novel form. So I did. And once you start writing, it's a little addicting because it's kind of like Shakespeare. You have Shakespeare, but you have all of the different characters that Shakespeare created. And each and every one of those characters are an aspect of Shakespeare, but also has its own life form, which is like our relationship to a creator, because we're all a part of the creator, we're all a drop of the ocean, but yet we still have our own life forms within the drop. We still have our own, we have our who we are, but we're still an aspect of that energy. And so I started looking at it from that. So I drew upon my own experiences. I drew upon, I could hear people's voices um, coming through and sharing with me the different um, aspects of who they were, or people I knew from clients. So it was kind of a mix of a lot of things. And then, of course, you have to start your book with a hook. So the majority of the people who have some sort of awakening or shift, myself included, starts with a car accident. So it's very relatable to a lot of people. And then I'm like, as I was writing, I would imagine myself all of these different characters to see how it would play out and how they would interact. And so it just formed the story. There is a cliffhanger at the end of the book.
Mhm.
It's the first book of three. This one is on the financial aspect of it. It will continue. The second book will be on relationships. I'll tell you that. And then the third book will be on health. Why? Those are the three major things most people go through that ask me for help, myself included: health, wealth, or relationships, because everyone's looking for happiness, prosperity, and love. It doesn't matter what country or culture. So I've always known that I was going to be writing a 3-book series. Might end up being 6, because I might have to write a book like this with all the self-help stuff as the backstory to the actual novel. But
Mhm.
what was really fun about all of this is I went back to some of my writings and some of my journals and started looking at the words that I would use. And about 8 years ago, I was writing the soul's abundance. The soul's abundance is this, the soul's abundance is that. And then I realized after this book was out, I wrote the abundant soul. We just reversed the word.
Mhm. So it was already channeled years ago. And I would say I'm one of those people where a car accident, and the way I would tell the story of the car accident, it was definitely an awakening. Now, it was another 40-year process to let go of things. But even back then, I would say I felt like I was driving along in my life. And what happened was I was coming to an intersection and somebody couldn't see around someone going left and they took a shot.
Yep.
Bad judgment. And I couldn't miss them. I T-boned them.
Yeah.
And my steering wheel ended up against my chest. And um, I felt like it was a hand. Like Even though I know it was a car, I described it as a hand because my first two thoughts were, I'm glad I'm alive and I got
Yes.
my job.
Hmm.
Almost simultaneously, it's not what I want to do. Um, and I was 25 years old,
Yeah.
26 years old. And uh, because it was 1985. So I actually was 24 years old, going to be 25 years old. And something that stops you, like a hand that goes, whoa, just a minute, you know? And when I look at one of the things that led me to at 29 during my Saturn return was to be driving all over the country by myself, camping, meeting people, doing all of these things. And when I would read those journals, it was about a whole lot of, I had some really great thoughts about spirit, a whole lot of, wondering what I could do for work, for financial. And the third one was all about relationship. And that's the part that actually drives me crazy when I read it. Like, going back to myself back then and say, it's going to be okay. It really is. Stop
Hmm.
obsessing. But that's where I was back then, you know. It was important. So yeah, I can see why that would become the trilogy. And maybe you're going to have workbooks that go with it because often stopping to put your thoughts down in a structure. Because honestly, reading my journal, sometimes I go, oh God, just let's get to the really good thoughts that you're. I was reading during that time Gary Zukav's Seed of the Soul. It was newly
Hmm.
out. So I was having all these great deep thoughts, and then I would go into, I wonder if I'm ever going to be like, oh
Right. I know we
God,
all do that. We all do that.
yeah.
I do have a workbook that goes with it. I actually teach a class called, well, the Abundant Soul Transformation. I
Hmm.
did have it labeled as the Financially Fit Transformation, but the Abundant Soul really sounds really where we want to go energetically. And so I do teach it. It's a quarter-long program. There are two workbooks that go with it. The first is the 2-day course, teaching you the techniques that Crystal goes through in the Abundant Soul. And then the 11 weeks that follow is fine tuning and using different ways for you to come into that alignment to have the prosperity in your life. So there is a course that's going to be coming up in September. I want to say it's like the 20th and 21st, or maybe the 21st, 22nd, whatever
Well,
the
please make sure you
Friday.
send it so we can we can
And then you
post it.
can have workbooks with the class.
Then you get workbooks. I'm a teacher. I was a teacher for 30 years. I like workbooks, not in keeping people busy, but take my learning and give me a structure to put it down. Um,
Yeah.
to take notes. I thought the best thing I ever learned in eighth grade was outlining. I thought that was just the coolest thing. And of course, I being who I am, I didn't just follow the outline. I had the little squiggles over here and little hearts. So, but it did help me very much. But I'm also a Virgo North Node, so I want structure and pieces and how you put them together is how I want. There's another word I'm going to ask you about: prosperity.
Yes.
The
What does it really
definition?
mean?
Yeah. What does it mean to you? Because we all have different definitions of it.
Right. Prosperity and abundance kind of go together for me. A lot of people just think it's about money, which that is an aspect of it, but it's not its entirety. And it's really about having an abundance or being plentiful in all aspects of your life, not just monetarily. That's only one aspect. So, having prosperity in your emotional well being, maybe it's your physical health, maybe it's having prosperity and fullness and richness in spirit, or you find it when you're out in nature. If you want to go the abundance angle of it, maybe it's a refrigerator full of food. Maybe for some people, it's having multiple houses or multiple cars, but having plenty, more than enough. So then you have the ability, as you choose, to share it with others. Now, sharing with others does not mean you necessarily hand them money or give them your car or the shirt off your back, but sharing in the space and the environment with others, to be of service to each other, to invoke the gratitude and the kindness and and helping other people in the ways that you can choose to help. So prosperity to me really encompasses all of those things, not just what money can buy.
Yeah, yeah. Prosperity for me definitely has a component of happiness and joy and acceptance for
Yes.
where I am, what I have, and
Mhm.
that gratitude piece of it. Because there are people that I've met who are prosperous who have very little, but very much enjoy who they are and what they are. Um,
Yes.
and that's a
The
gift.
emotional well-being. Yeah. The emotional prosperity. Mm.
So we have only, I can't believe this, 7 minutes left for
Wow.
our time. So I'm very excited about the book. And again, I'm inviting everyone. It's available on Amazon. It's available in a Kindle form. Um, and so tell me a little bit about how Bob Doyle wrote and if you don't know who Bob Doyle is, and if you have never read The Secret or watched the movie The Secret, was a featured expert in The Secret. So how did that all come about?
Um,
By the way, it writes the forward for the book. So
yes, you know people who know people.
yeah.
It's through those relationships and those connections. What I will say is I'm truly honored that Bob said yes and that he did write the foreword to the book. There was one requirement that he had, and I know you can pay a lot of people to write the different forewords and different things, and they just write something or you submit in a sample of what you would like. And he didn't want any of that. And he said, I want you to read the manuscripts so I can write something thoughtful. And I went, wow, okay, here's my manuscript. Know that it's going through some final edits right now. So it's not 100%, but it's like 92%. Just know that. And he said, okay. And he sat down, read the manuscript, and wrote an amazing foreword in a matter of a couple of days and sent it to me. And he really did write a thoughtful foreword. I'm so incredibly grateful and blessed for that. And when I read his foreword, I realized something about the book that I had not considered. In that when he wrote the foreword, he also wrote about one of the characters, a teacher, instructor that is in the book. And he talked about how he resonated with that particular character, and often that what that character did was also in his own practice to how he taught. And that was when I realized in that moment that when people read this book, they resonate with the character energy that they need to resonate with for
Mhm.
them. And I was blown away. I was truly blown away. So incredibly thankful for that. Ever since then, I followed his philosophy. So every once in a while, I get asked to either write a foreword or write an endorsement for the book. And I will take my time and I'll read what they send over. And then I will write something thoughtful back because that's what was the gift that was given to me.
I so understand what he encountered when he read the book because I myself, it, that's why I like stories. But I was an elementary teacher. That's how I taught children.
Mhm.
Um, we are all very simple, and I'm the storytelling astrologer because we remember things in story format through the story. And I am a great fan of Joseph Campbell. To be a hero in my own life, I have to understand my own story, what character is on the stage, and
Yeah.
accept all of them who walk upon the stage. Because in the years, I've had some characters that I have um, regaled to the wings. And only when I come off stage do I deal with that character rather than letting that character be who I am. It's a component of myself. So, um, any final words? This has been wonderful. I really enjoyed chatting with you. I forgot sometimes that I'm actually on live. So,
No, it's all good. I'm just going to highlight the very first page in the book, The Abundant Soul. This was a mantra that I wrote when I was going through some of those really hard, difficult times. My health, my first marriage ended, all of those things. And this is something that I say often and I still use to this day. And it was really reiterated to me through some of my teachers and mentors that I've had. And it is trust and you will see, believe and you will know, have faith, all is well. Follow your heart and spirit will lead you.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, folks on Intuition of the Soul. Um, please buy the book. I'd love to have you be part of the conversations. And I'll be sending out a little thing, some format, but it's available on Amazon. And Donna, thank you so much for coming in today. I really
Thank you
coming
for
in today.
having
See,
me.
I'm a teacher coming in today and talking to the class. Um,
Perfect.
and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank
Namaste,
you.
everyone. Bye.